and Jared.
All right. Well, first of all, on behalf of the department, I want to thank everybody for allowing myself and Jared to be here with you this morning and to give you some information. But if you don't mind, Bob, what I like to do is just tell a little bit about myself, and then I'll let Jared tell a little bit about himself. And then before we get started with the questions, I think it's nice for you to kind of get a little background on us. So feel free to call me.
Oh, yeah. No, that's perfectly fine. Go right ahead.
Excellent. Feel free to call me Hank. You don't have to call me Chief, but if that's easier for you, feel free to do so. I've been the fire chief here on Bainbridge Island for 13 years now. I have over 41 years in the fire service. I came from that place called California. Don't hold that against me. I was with a large fire department there for 29 years as a deputy chief, just like Jared's a deputy chief, and left to become the fire chief here. I have 3 daughters and I have 3 grandchildren, and we live here on the island. And I spare time, I really don't have any between the job and keeping track of my 3 daughters. I don't have much spare time. I'll wait for retirement for that. That's a little bit about me, and I'll turn it over to Jared.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jared Moravec. I'm the deputy chief with Bainbridge Fire. I've been with Bainbridge since 2006. Before that, I came via Colorado, Oklahoma, Nebraska. So I'm kind of a Midwest boy and have moved myself westward. Been in the fire service for 28 years. And have really enjoyed it. Started off as a volunteer, and then after about 8 years as a volunteer, worked my way into a paid position. So been really fortunate to have that happen. Have a lovely wife, Heather, and 1 son, Tyler. Tyler he just wrapped up his freshman year in college, so he's doing some summer school classes since he's got nothing else to do. And he'll be headed back to Bozeman, Montana here in another month and a half or so to start up school for the fall. So really happy to be here.
All right. So I understand, Bob, you have some questions for Jared and I.
No, Bob, I think you're muted.
I think you're on mute.
Yes, I was on mute. Thank you. So the first question is, the 4th of July is coming. What's the fire department preparing for?
Well, that's a very good question. So as all of you know, I've been here for any time at all on the island. Is the 4th of July is more than just the 4th of July. It's really a community event that involves, the whole weekend, right? And before COVID, we would anticipate we would have the street dance, we would have, the baseball game on Saturday, we'd have the parade, we would have all the events associated with that. So obviously we're not having those things this year. However, the fire department is prepared with any other 4th of July to deal with a large amount, or should I say a significant larger amount than usual call volume. There's ways that we prepare for it. There's 3 different ways. We have a public outreach program that we try to educate people on fireworks, and there is training that we do, and then there's also staffing. And I'm going to have Jared speak to all 3 of those as it pertain to the 4th of July. Okay.
Thanks, Chief. So public education is something that we do that I think you all know how the saying goes, an ounce of
pertain to the 4th of July. Okay.
Thanks, Chief. We do an ounce of
Hey, Richard,
thanks, Chief.
you're on July. Could you please mute yourself?
Thanks, Chief.
There we go. The literal echo chamber effect right there.
All right, I'm going to give it another go. So okay. The chief mentioned 3 things: public education, training, and staffing. So I'll start with public education. I think as everybody's probably heard the term, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So we try to get the word out to everybody through our website, through calls like this right now in COVID times to talk about ways that folks can celebrate the 4th safely. So we'll jump into a whole bunch of more safety stuff as we get through the questions this morning. But for those of you that like perusing the internet, if you go to our website, www.bifd.org, as in Bainbridge Island Fire Department.org, there is a ton of information about 4th of July safety, fireworks safety, water safety, all kinds of things you probably wish you didn't even know about are on the website. So I encourage everybody to peruse that. If any of you do the Facebook thing, we also post safety messages on Facebook as well. Training, obviously with the 4th happening in the summer, and we've been fortunate with a little bit of rain, but the next few days it's going to be a little bit dry. We're always training. The firefighters train every single day that they're on duty, and we've just wrapped up with our annual wildfire training. So the troops are ready for anything that comes their way this 4th of July. And then the last thing is staffing. As the chief mentioned, we generally up staff on the 4th of July, on the 3rd and the 4th, just because of all the community events. But even without the community events this year, we're expecting more people to be home, and we're expecting more people to be celebrating at home. So that still generates fire and medical responses. So we've upstaffed at each fire station as well to anticipate an uptick in calls.
Okay, so give me a moment. So the next question is, what is the fire department considered to be the biggest risk associated with Independence Day, especially now that people are going to be putting on their own celebrations at home?
Well, that's a good question. So typically in this time of year, we tend to get an increase in calls anyways. Our population during the day in Winslow increases, right, with visitors. And because of COVID, we're not sure how many we're going to get. But in addition to all the related hazards from the 4th of July, let's just say fireworks, let's just talk about, barbecue fires or something out of the ordinary. We have all the EMS and fire calls that we would go on typically anyways. So when you get all those calls and you add on the extra calls that are related to the 4th of July, it's really handling the number of calls. Community has been very supportive of the fire department, and because things are easier for us now than they were, a decade ago, because now all 3 fire stations are staffed, and we actually are able to respond from all 3 of our stations now. So that provides coverage for the entire island. But even with that coverage, sometimes with the number of calls that come in, it's managing those calls, and that's why Jared said we're going to increase our staffing when it comes to the 3rd and 4th of July to meet those needs. Did I miss anything on there, Jared?
No, I think you covered most of that, Chief. If we're looking at specific risks associated with the 4th, think about those things that folks are going to be doing if they're celebrating at home. So as the chief mentioned, they might be barbecuing outside. They may have recreational campfire in their backyard. Those, if left unattended or improperly managed, we've tend to see increases in the number of fires when we have those types of activities going on. Fireworks. I know we're going to talk more about fireworks, but this is the last 4th of July that consumer fireworks are legal. And with more people we expect being home to celebrate, we're expecting an uptick in the number of fireworks incidents that we have on the island, not just on the fire side of things, but also on the EMS side of things. And we have had a number of fires and injuries that have happened over the years as a result of fireworks. So we're prepared for that. And then with it supposed to be being a halfway decent day weather-wise, some folks like to get out on the water. So we're preparing for some water rescue responses on that day as well. So those are really the big items that we're looking at in terms of potential responses over the 4th of July weekend.
Yeah, thank you. So this is kind of a follow-on question. Are there specific rules concerning personal use of fireworks on the island? And as citizens, if we see somebody that's violating the rules, what's the best way to report that to you?
Well, those are good questions. So let's just jump right into it and answer questions regarding fireworks. And I think it's important to kind of put it in perspective as islanders, where we are today and where we were before, and we can answer those questions. So I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but the fire department, as most of you maybe know or do not know, is we're not part of the city. And the city has responsibilities for adopting codes and ordinances, and we go out in buildings and inspect buildings. But when it comes to fireworks, the police department's in charge of enforcing violations to fireworks. Now, that being said, it was about 10 years ago that the city council asked myself and the deputy chief, who at that time was the full-time fire marshal, to make a proposal on how to reduce the risk of fireworks. So I'd like him to talk about that and then answer your question, where are we today? And then what do we do when somebody is not complying with what the law says? So go ahead, Jared.
Great, thanks, Chief. So about 10 years ago, City Council asked us to help them out and provide them some options with respect to the fireworks ordinance that was in place at the time. And at that time, fireworks were legal, and I'm going to use the term consumer fireworks. And I saw this question pop up, so I want to be sure to answer it. So there's different kinds of fireworks. So there are consumer fireworks, which would be the types of fireworks that you would get at a fireworks stand, that would be like ground spinners and small fountains and, snakes and smoke bombs, those little tanks that you light up and they propel across the ground. Those would be consumer fireworks. Then there's the professional grade fireworks, which are the big fireworks that you see, like when they shoot them off in Eagle Harbor or in Gasworks Park over in Seattle. Those are professional grade fireworks. So back about 10 years ago, we provided some options to City Council, and at that time, fireworks were able to be shot off by the general public between 11 a.m. and 11 p.m. on the 4th of July, and also on New Year's Eve night and into the wee hours of New Year's. So usually when fireworks comes up in the political spectrum, it's kind of one of two sides. You either love them and want to have them, or you hate them and you don't want them. So the council at that time took a compromise position and basically said, we're still going to allow them, but we're taking New Year's off the table. We don't need to be shooting off fireworks at New Year's. And on the 4th, we're going to narrow the window. So instead of being able to shoot them off on the 4th between 11 and 11, we're going to narrow that window from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m., but just on the 4th of July. Any other time for the general public to shoot off consumer fireworks isn't permitted. So as of this 4th of July, that is the rule, is that citizens can shoot off consumer fireworks that they can buy at a fireworks stand only on the 4th of July, and only between the hours of 5 p.m. and 11 p.m. So that's the rule in place for this year. Now that's going to change for next year because the city council last October voted to prohibit the discharge of all consumer fireworks on the island. So that will go into effect next 4th of July. So next 4th of July, it's not legal to go to the fireworks stand, buy fireworks, bring them to the island, and shoot them off. So this year's kind of the last hurrah for consumer fireworks on the island on the 4th.
Yeah, and then Sheila had was asking a question about this being the last year for consumer fireworks. So Sheila, is there more information that you're looking for? Did the Deputy Chief answer your question?
The answer was done. Thanks, Jared.
Yeah, you're welcome. So Chief, do you want to talk about reporting violations, or do you want me to handle that?
Well, you're on a roll, so let's just keep on going.
Okay, sounds good. So inevitably, folks will obtain and shoot off fireworks outside the legal hours, and or on the 4th of July, when they are shooting them off, they're shooting off fireworks that aren't legal, or they're shooting them off in a dangerous manner, using them as a weapon. I mean, who knows? People do amazing things. So working with the police department and the 911 center, there's been a special phone number that's put in place to report fireworks violations. So that number will go live tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. and it will stay in place until 5 in the morning on Monday, the 6th of July. And that number is 360-307-5811. And I'll repeat that again, 360-307-5811. That is the non-emergency fireworks reporting number that will be in place starting tomorrow through Monday. So if you hear someone shooting off fireworks, if you want to report any type of fireworks violations, then call that non-emergency number. Now, if the fireworks have started a fire or someone's gotten hurt or there's some other type of imminent danger, it's okay to call 911 and report that. And we want folks to do that. But if you're tired of hearing the noise because someone's shooting them off nearby on the 2nd or the 3rd, please use that non-emergency number, and the police department will be following up because, as like the chief mentioned earlier, the police department's responsible for enforcement of the ordinance.
And I want to echo what the deputy chief's saying. And sometimes life isn't black and white, right? You're just not sure. When in doubt, call 911. All right, call 911. We don't want you to have to worry about it, whether or not someone has started a fire. If you smell a fire, if you think there was something, please call 911. And if we arrive, if we have to go back, we'll go back. That's not a problem at all. And also, I saw one of the pop-up questions that come up about sparklers. As sparklers are considered part of consumer fireworks, so sparklers are allowed this year. Interesting thing about sparklers is they burned very hot, about 1,200 degrees. And a quarter of all emergency room visits are due to sparklers, especially for young kids getting sparklers and getting burnt from them. So they are considered a consumer firework, and they are allowed this year, but starting next year, they will no longer be allowed.
And if I can jump in too, Chief, since we're talking about maybe what's legal and what's not legal in the consumer fireworks world, we always get a lot of questions about, if we go across the bridge over to the reservation, and there's plenty of fireworks available over there, there's lots of fireworks stands, are those legal or not legal on the island? So many of the fireworks that they sell over there are consumer fireworks that are considered legal on Bainbridge Island, so long as you're shooting them off between 5 and 11 only on the 4th. But there are some things that they sell over there that aren't legal. So bottle rockets and sky rockets, and like the Black Cat 1.5-inch type firecrackers. Those are types of fireworks that they would sell over on the reservation, but they're not legal to be discharged as soon as you step off the reservation.
Okay, so kind of shifting the focus, what are some things that we need to be aware of, and what can we do? What can we do during wildfire season to ensure that people are around us are safe, whether or not they're using fireworks or having a bonfire in their backyard or whatever it might be?
That's a great question, Bob. When myself and the deputy chief first came here, over a decade ago, we had a discussion in my office, and we decided it was important for the island to have our own plan developed, not just a Kitsap County plan, but our own plan developed to see exactly what the hazard on Bainbridge Island was, and then how to mitigate that hazard and how we would go about addressing that. So I'm going to have the deputy chief talk about what that plan entails. And that plan, by the way, is on our website. And it has what I like for chiefs, big pictures and things that's easy for me to tell. And you can see exactly where you live and the hazards associated with wildfire by that map. So I'm going to have Jared talk about that.
Thanks, Chief. So wildfire in the Northwest is kind of tricky business, especially in Western Washington, where it stays pretty wet. We're just getting through our January with as much moisture as we got this past June. So, and a lot of folks, when they see green trees, they figure that, hey, green is good, and there's not a lot of risk. But the reality is that we do have a wildfire risk on the west side of the Cascades, and specifically here on Bainbridge. So I think one of the things that folks need to understand is that the risk is a little bit different than it is on the east side of the Cascades or down in California. And a lot of it has to do with the natural fire cycle and ecology and the environment. And that on the in eastern Washington, they get big fires on a regular basis, and that's just kind of part of how that works over there. Well, big fires over there in certain areas may happen every decade or so in the same area, versus over here we're on a fire cycle that's measured in 200 to 400 years when we would get a big fire that moves through. But in the past decade, we've seen an increase of the number of large fires here on the west side. We've had a number of fires in Kitsap County. We've had a bunch of fires in Mason County that we've actually responded to help out. So the wildfire risk here on the island is real. It's something that we take pretty seriously. The wildfire plan that the chief mentioned includes a lot of background info to try to describe what the wildfire threat is and what some of the risks are. And that plan kind of was a spinoff from my master's degree thesis, which I did on wildfire threat here on Bainbridge. So there was a number of recommendations that came out of that report, recommendations about how the fire department can be better prepared to respond to a wildfire on the island. And then there was also a lot of talk about things we can do to mitigate that threat. Some of that is through public education. Some of that is through some efforts that folks can do where they live. So if you happen to own a home on the island, making sure that you get your gutters cleaned out before summertime hits, because embers from a fire could land in the gutters, and that's a way that homes can start on fire and whatnot. So it is something that we take seriously. It is a risk that we have. Knock on wood, we haven't had a large fire on the island where we've lost homes, but we have had multiple acre fires, wildfires on the island within the past 10 years, and it's something that we're prepared for, and that we're trying to get the word out to everybody to be aware of that risk and to take it seriously.
We're also partnering with the city. So the city emergency planner has really stepped up. I don't know if you've had a chance to meet Ann Lesage, and she has worked diligently on helping to improve the safety when it comes to wildfire on the island. She developed an evacuation map that is on the city website. It's on our website as well, to help people in case of a wildfire. So we're working very closely with the city on trying to mitigate these things. And some other ways that we do that is through the fire code. And the deputy chief and I will go into the city council in February. Is when the new code would be adopted with some changes to the code we're looking at regarding mitigation of fire wildland issues.
Yeah. So just as kind of a follow-on question, you mentioned making sure that our gutters are cleaned out, which, yeah, it makes perfect sense. I got to be honest with you. It's something I never thought of. Are there any recommendations that you have for clearing brush around our houses or our property, or things that we need to be aware of? Is there a recommended technique for doing that?
Sure, that's a great question. So if you have any vegetation that's right up tight against your house, that can be tricky business when it comes to a fire, because that's a way that fire can spread to the house itself. Limbing up trees so that if you have low-hanging branches that are within a few feet of the ground, it's good to be able to limb the trees up, because what can happen is a fire that's traveling along the ground gets into that low-hanging branch, and then that low-hanging branch, or if there's brush, a lot of brush underneath the trees, that can carry that up into the tree and get it into the upper levels of the tree itself, which is really, really hard for us to deal with, even on a good day. So we do have a program where if you want us to come out to your property and do a survey and provide some recommendations of ways that you can make things a little bit more fire safe, or fire wise, as we like to say, you can call the fire department, leave us a message, and we can set something up where we can go out and do an evaluation of your property and kind of provide some recommendations specific to your situation.
All at no cost.
Okay, well, that's very good to know. And then we had a question come in from Richard. He wants to know what part of the department's workforce consists of volunteers versus full-time professional firefighters.
Yes, that's another good question. So we have 3 fire stations, and we are what they call a combination department. So we have career members and we have volunteers. The career members make sure it's a known, because you could imagine if you had just volunteers and people weren't able to volunteer, then the station wouldn't be able to be open. So the career people provide the foundation, and then the volunteers supplement that. We are right now, our career staffing is about 30, and our volunteer staffing is just almost the exact same, about 30. So we are truly a true combination department. We have some volunteers that go in and fight fire just like everybody else. And we have some volunteers that would rather be educators, and they help educate the community, teach CPR, things like that. But total, it's almost 50-50 right down the middle, the number of volunteers and the number of career members that we have.
Thank you for that answer.
You're welcome, sir.
Yeah. So that's kind of the end of, let me double check, but we've kind of worked through our questions. Just out of curiosity, I mean, I realize fire calls and 911 calls are serious business, but there can also be absurd situations that you respond to. Is there any one particular incident that made the department laugh or shake their heads that you could tell us about without getting too far into personal details?
That's a very good question. I know I haven't been here when this happened, but I understand someone's donkey, or was it a llama, got stuck in a ditch, and they called us to help take the donkey or llama out of the ditch. So I'm aware of that. I can't think of anything off the top of my head here on Bainbridge that would really stick out as something. But if it's something unusual, it's usually accidents that happen that are just simple things. People locking their pet by accident in the car, and they'll call us out, and we'll get the pet out of the car. Just little things like that. We did have, I guess I can share this one. We did have on the island a high bank. As you know, we have a lot of high bank on the island, and there was a little dog that went down the high bank and got stuck. And the owner, instead of calling us, they went down there to retrieve the dog. Well, then they got stuck. So we had to bring in our rescue team, and the whole team went down and successfully rescued the pet owner as well as the pet. So that's probably the latest ones that comes to my mind.
Yeah, happy ending on that. And then there was one more question that came in from Rita. She wants to know about the ability of classes for fire safety and property protection. Do you have a schedule that's on your website, or do you regularly offer those kind of classes to the public?
So that's a great question, and to kind of wrap things up here, just so you know, in addition to going on calls, we have what we call community risks. So we teach classes and provide education on everything from disaster preparedness to fall prevention to safe use of your generator, all these things. Unfortunately, though, because of COVID-19 right now, we're having to limit the type of classes that we do. Everything we're doing right now is virtual. And before we ended the day, I wanted to just stress once again, please take the precautions that are being recommended by health officials. Wear your face coverings. Even when we're not on calls, within the fire station, we're wearing face coverings. Please wash your hands on a regular basis and use social distancing wherever you can, because until we get our arms around this COVID-19, it is out there. And it is on Bainbridge Island, so we just need to be aware of that. But because of that, right now, both for the safety of the community and for our firefighters, we're holding off on any classes until a future time where it's safe to do so.
Chief, this is Rita Riley.
Hi, Rita.
Actually, I read in the paper where the protection class on Bainbridge is now down to a 4. Correct?
That's correct.
Which is awesome, but I don't think most people. And is that the whole island?
Yes, that is correct.
Because I don't think what most people understand, and for those of you that are homeowners and have homeowners insurance, part of your premium is based on the protection class. And Bainbridge used to be 7, so it was high. It came down to a 6, and now it's down to a 4. So I would suggest that you get a hold of your insurance carrier and be sure that that you are being rated with the right protection class, because that will bring down your premium.
Thank you, Rita. And just to, we don't like to pat ourselves on the back, but to put it in perspective, the city of Seattle, they're a 2. So a major city like Seattle's a 2 and we're a 4. So we're pretty proud of that. So
it's awesome. I worked in the insurance industry for a long time, and that is really an achievement for the fire department.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I have several comments. It's Richard Herzog. First of all, I want to acknowledge some of the community things that you do. I know that my family and especially my grandchildren look forward to the annual breakfast that you hold.
Mhm.
I'm also aware of some special outreaches that you do for the children, and that's very effective. Um, a sidebar to that was that I grew up in New York State, in a suburb of New York, where we had volunteer firemen.
Mhm.
And a big part of the year was the fact that there would be periodic parades where our fire department would be part of the parade. And I also know that that fire department would travel around the state and go to many other parades. Do you people do any of that?
So we participate in, of course, the 4th of July parade, and that's the extent of the parades that we participate in. We help out at the senior graduation when they do have a graduation. We help out there, and we try to be invested in the community. We try to reach out, like for instance, at the on the 3rd, on the night of the dance, and also any other public events. We try to be out there in that way. But as far as parade themselves, sir, the only one that we do is the Grand Old Fourth here on the island.
Yes. Well, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and there was one more question that Sheila asked that I didn't notice before, but Sheila's asking, is the ambulance service part of the fire department? So, I mean, from what I've seen, there are ambulances that are part of the fire department, and then there's also private companies that provide ambulance service. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that works?
Yes, I'd say it's over a year and a half ago, the Bainbridge Island Ambulance Association ceased to exist, and the fire department took over that responsibility. So we are doing what the Ambulance Association used to do for them. There are still private ambulances that people can call for non-emergent reasons if they want to be transported from one facility to another. You may see Olympic ambulance on the island sometimes, things like that. But for all of your care, whether it's a broken ankle or something more serious, we will provide the transportation for you.
Okay, well, thank you for that.
Speaking of ambulances, I understand that it's possible to get insurance, private insurance, so that you are covered for helicopter service. Have you any experiences with that sort of situation?
Yes. So let me talk about, first of all, insurance, and then we'll talk about the ambulance insurance. So the Bainbridge Island Fire Department has made it a specific priority for us is if your insurance company only pays so much for your transportation to the hospital, we don't balance bill because we feel that you support the fire department, you pay taxes, so we don't come back and balance bill for whatever the insurance companies don't pay. So I wanted you to be aware of that. Second is that there are two outfits that provide air ambulances services in the region, and they have subscription rates. They're not part of the fire department, but you can subscribe, and then for that cost, they will cover 100% of your transportation if we utilize an air service. We transport, Deputy Chief, how many of those do we do a year? About 100, a little less than 100 a year?
No, we're down in the 50 to 60 times a year.
Okay.
We have folks that get transported via helicopter over to Seattle.
50 times a year?
Yes, sir.
Super. So let me get some clarification. Because I was about to purchase the insurance.
Yeah.
So are you saying that if I don't have the insurance and I elect to call for a helicopter ambulance, first of all, would I call and request that through you, or would I call directly to a helicopter ambulance? What would the
So,
procedure be?
that's a great question. So if you're ill and need to go, so call 911. And the way it works is we'll respond with our EMTs and our paramedics, and we will evaluate and treat you. And through the course of that evaluation and treatment, if we decide that your condition is such that we need you to get you over to Seattle really, really quickly, then we'll go ahead and initiate that call to get the helicopter coming, and then we'll transfer you from our ambulance to the helicopter, and then they'll take you over. So that's really how that gets initiated. Is it all starts with 911.
Super. So this has been a hot spot in my agenda of to-dos. So are you then saying that if it turns out that the helicopter ambulance is used, that I don't have any deductible that I have to pay towards that would totally be covered by you?
So the way the subscriptions work, kind of as the chief alluded to, is if you talk to the air ambulance folks like Airlift Northwest or Life Flight, they'll tell you that it's not quote unquote insurance, it's a subscription. So, and the way most of those subscriptions work is they will go ahead and bill Medicare or Medicaid, and whatever is not covered by Medicare or Medicaid or your private insurance, then they basically waive the rest.
Correct.
So whatever the balance is, they say, well, we're going to forgive that and not charge anymore. So it's not that they're not getting paid. They're just not technically getting paid by you. They're getting paid through Medicare, Medicaid, or your insurance. But when you go to sign up, I would recommend that call them and pose those questions specifically to them, because they're going to be in a much better position to speak to the specific terms of those subscriptions that they have.
Good. Well, as Rita stated, she was involved in insurance for a while in her career. I was too. However, I was never aware of this sort of insurance. And I think as a senior citizen with some health issues, it's a prudent addition to your coverage to have that. So thank you for clarifying these things for us all.
And one more thing to add to that, Richard, that the deputy chief said is absolutely right. I would also ask them the area that they cover, because it would be more than just Bainbridge Island. Some of them have a larger area. They'll cover the San Juan Islands. They'll cover the entire state. So you may want to see what's best for you in your personal life, especially if you visit family on the eastern side of the state, and ask them for the area that they fly to as well.
Well, as an anecdote, there was a while when I used to live very close to Harborview, and I was amazed at the high number of ambulances that would fly in there every day. I mean, it was really quite a thing. Of course, I know that is one of the key hospitals in the state, so they bring many cases there. So thanks again.
Okay.
One last thing I would ask is, can you provide us with the names of those subscription companies, or should I simply go online and look for them?
So the two companies that directly serve our area, one is called Airlift Northwest, and the other one is called, I think it's the Life Flight Network.
Yes.
Now, keep in mind, especially Life Flight, there's a whole bunch of different Life Flight companies all throughout the country. When I lived and worked in Omaha, Nebraska, and volunteered for a fire department just outside Omaha, there was Life Flight, but that Life Flight is not the same as the Life Flight out here. So Airlift Northwest is one, and I believe it's the Life Flight Network. But if you do a search on the internet for Life Flight in Seattle, it should pop up the right one.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, are there any other questions from the group? Okay, so gentlemen, thank you very much. This has been a really informative discussion. We appreciate you being here with us, and I wish everybody a great rest of their day.
Bob, thank you. On behalf of Jared and I, really appreciate the opportunity. And if you want to do this again sometime, feel free to let us know. We'd be more than happy to do it.
Excellent.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Bob.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
And stay on. And stay on, will you please?
Okay.
Okay.